back, y'all. My name is CJ Kopliska. I am the Director of Programming here at Gymnazo. And today I want to explore a bit with you about programming strategies for both in-person and virtual group fitness. Now, I've been programming performance, restoration, and fitness programs for over 10 years for diverse groups of people. I've worked with kid athletes, I've worked with adult athletes, I've worked with people who have never worked out a day in their life, and others who are just looking to expand their movement capacity and movement ability. At Gymnazo, we serve all people, all ranges. Now, that can be any fitness facility as well, but our programming is designed to not be a one-size-fits-all fitness program. Now, everybody can do the program, but it's designed to be an individualized experience. So, in a group setting, how do you bring that individual experience to your athletes? Well, everybody's a unique human being. Everybody moves differently. Everybody's got different fitness goals. So, to program for these large groups of people without forcing them into that one-size-fits-all, we start with exploring the principles of human movement and integrating the physical, behavioral, and biological sciences into our athletes' macro cycle, or one full year of programming. And we don't focus strictly on the muscles. What we focus on are movements that turn on proprioceptors, that turn on the muscles, that move the bones, and move our body through space. So essentially, we start with the movements that we're all capable of, program those in our workouts, and then work to enhance our athletes' potential in terms of ability, availability, and capacity for their training throughout the entire year. Now, before we kind of get into the bulk of the programming strategies, we got to talk about some programming basics. We got to think about who we're serving and what they do, how they move in their daily life, and especially their job or their sport. Every single person is an athlete that comes in our doors, and yours as well. They're in the sport of life. So we've got to consider what they experience in their daily life. What positions, what actions, what are they able to do very easily, and where do they not have much access? Now, this is kind of the bread and butter when we go into programming for these groups, but we got to dive in a little bit deeper and assume a few things. We can assume everybody moves. Everybody has some kind of limitation in their movement, and some experience severe discomfort in their movement, while others haven't explored the potential of their ability to express themselves through movement. Let's also make some other assumptions. We're a product of our environment, and in many cases, our environment is a product of ourselves. There are body positions that we find ourselves in each day, whether it be seated, it be prone, it be side lying, it be supine, kneeling, whatever the case may be. Of course, standing, there's some version of those body positions that we are in. So we need to think about including those in our programming. Not just a split stance, not just wide stance, but we need to consider when we're kneeling, what are we doing while we're kneeling? When we're standing, what are we doing while we're standing? Are we balancing? Are we in a stride? While we're on our backs, or while we're prone, or we're side lying? What is it that we're doing? What are the actions that we're completing from those positions? Are we going into the positions? Are we coming out of them? And this kind of sets the stage for what is going to be involved in our program. Other things to assume. Some people have never picked up a free weight intentionally to move it for a workout in their entire life, while others pick up a dumbbell daily, or they're picking up 2x4s and moving around. We need to consider that our athletes are going to be in a wide spectrum if we want to serve more individuals. Now, you might have a specific niche that you're serving, like maybe they're contractors, maybe they're athletes of a specific sport, maybe they're just people who sit all day long and they're sedentary and they want to get healthy. Whatever the case may be, we need to get people to find their primary function in the front of their body, the back of their body, to the right and left sides of their body, and rotational. So we know that people go to positions, people act, and we have lunges, squats, we've got pushes and pulls, we've got lifts, we've got different reaches, feet may be reaching throughout the day, hands may be reaching throughout the day, and we even have locomotion and vertimotion. So from getting to point A to B, so kind of traveling on our x-axis or on our horizontal, and we also have our vertical displacement, actually leaving the ground. Something else to think about, are people going to be working a lot up overhead? Are they stacking boxes up on shelves? Are they moving people? Are they working down on the ground, and are they gardening? Or are they working in a seated position and living kind of at chest height or hip height throughout their day? If we're going to include overhead work, groundwork, rotational work, stuff behind us and in front of us, we've got to consider the skill level that's coming in for our workout. Have they experienced those motions intentionally and those different positions, or is this something novel and new that they're now bringing intention to? It's like we all walk, but when we start to break down gait into its stride and what our thoracic spine is doing, hips are doing, and whatever else, it starts to throw our mind and body for a loop, especially if we're not used to communicating our own movement and we're just kind of moving about our day without thinking about it. So in our program, what we're looking to do is to enhance our ability to access our sphere. Positions, you've got actions, and then you've also got different drivers. What's going to be doing the motion? Are our hands doing it, hips doing it, nose doing it, foot doing it, knee doing it? Just opportunities in our program to bring awareness to those tissues. There are so many right ways to move and so many different funky motions that we go about in our day. We need to start to systematize what it is that we're doing about our day and put them into our workouts, as opposed to just getting great at lifts. What about everything else that we do? Instead of just lunges and squats, what is it that we do in those lunges and squatting positions? And are we able to move freely and access our thoracic spine when we're in maybe a lunged position and feel stable here? Or have we only just integrated the muscle work of the quad, the hamstring, the calf, and the core to stabilize too much? So we need to open up the opportunity for our athletes to explore their sphere in their program. We need to also assume that everyone has intrinsic motivation already. If they're signed up for your class or coming to a session that you're coaching, they've already found motivation to train and learn from you. So we need to give them something to learn about themselves, about their own body, about their own motion, and in different positions. How are they interacting with the forces of nature, with gravity, ground reaction force, mass and momentum? Are they aware of those things when they're moving, or are they just trying to accomplish a task in a specific lift that's strictly a vertical displacement? We need to remove the fear, or at least acknowledge the fear that comes in to a new training program, especially something like our multidimensional movement program, which is very three-dimensional and involves a lot of flexions and extensions, lateral bending and rotations, but sets a solid foundation for the ground so that we can incorporate the thoracic spine into this. Now, we also need to assume that most athletes and clients don't know what you know about movement, physics, biology, psychology, all that good stuff. So how do we start to drip this education through the program? Well, it's offering those opportunities to get into a kneeling position, to get into a side lying position, to be prone and reach a hand up overhead, where they're now being exposed to the elements, exposed to the forces, and having to learn how to move their body in such a way that makes them feel stronger and more confident in how they move. What is it that you want your athletes, your clients to learn, understand, feel, and experience in their sessions? That's a big question that goes into all of my programming, and I ask it every quarter, every mesocycle. What is it that our athletes may be missing? We might be doing great stuff in our program, in our system of movement, but what's missing? And there's always something missing each mesocycle. But if you look at it from a macro cycle perspective, which we'll get into, we see the big picture, kind of get this bird's eye view looking down at what it is we want our athletes to feel, experience, and gain. And so we can look back at a year of programming and break it down into quarters. We got quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, which is then broken down even further into months. There in each quarter, there are 3 months, month 1, 2, and 3. Then we got months 4, 5, and 6. Then 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, and 12. So if we look at the macro cycle and set our goals, what is it in terms of movement skills, in terms of experience, in terms of physiological adaptations, which you can find in our downloadable template. Just got to click the link. I'll give you a little bit more information to kind of follow along with this. But what are the adaptations that we want our athletes to experience by the end of a year of training with us? We got to understand that some people will be coming in 3 times a week, some people coming in 6 times a week, some coming in once a week. So there may be different gains in your program depending on what days they're coming in and how often and how consistent they are. Now, we got to assume that people are coming in to train to be consistent. So let's build a program that encourages that consistency. If we break down that macro cycle into quarters, we can now have specific focuses in terms of movement skills and maybe those adaptations physiologically, whether it be cardiovascular endurance, maybe it's strength, maybe it's power, maybe it's coordination, reaction, whatever the case may be. We need to intentionally program for that adaptation. For example, if you had a forward lunge programmed in your workout, well, forward lunge is a forward lunge until you start to add load into this, maybe a load on the backside, and it starts to become a strength movement. Our body's getting stronger through that motion specifically. Maybe we're changing it into more of a cardiovascular activity. Maybe that step changes from an end range and becomes more medium range, like a quick step. Regardless, it's still a similar motion. The intent is just different. Maybe your focus is mobility this quarter. Depends on your sequence of program. Who's coming in and what is it designed for? Fitness? Is it restoration? Is it performance? And for what group of people? It might be a lunge and maybe a reach. And now you're exposing yourself to more range of motion in that exact same action. We just switched up a few things, added modifiers or tweaks to get specific gains. That's where the mesocycles are so important in terms of understanding how mesocycle 1 or quarter 1, mesocycle 2 or quarter 2, and then 3 and 4, how they interact with each other. Now, we got athletes coming in that are not necessarily seasoned athletes. They're not necessarily going to an on-season of track and field, and then post-season, and then preseason, and warming up and going through that kind of mesocycle. We're more so focusing on encouraging resilience and vitality through movement. So we need to explore all the potentials for our movement, but need to be able to systematize it so that we're not just going into this chaos mode and having no idea what the gain is. If in your mesocycles you're focusing on specific skills, maybe it's a throwing skill, maybe it's a lunging skill, maybe it's a gait mechanic skill, maybe you're looking at coordination reaction. If you pick maybe 3 to 6 of those for each quarter, now we have something to base our actual movements off of. If we break our mesocycle down into our microcycles, that now takes, let's say it's month 1, month 2, month 3 of quarter 1, and we break down month 1, which is 4 weeks. Now we've got 4 microcycles that we can incorporate very specific intentions to, whether that be a cardio versus strength, or that be something more specific like strength, in terms of power in a specific motion pattern or transformational zone, and cardiovascular training in running, or maybe it's cardiovascular training in throwing and then running. Whatever the case may be, we've got to decide what skills we want to focus on for that month. Now at Gymnazo, what we do is break that quarter into those 3 months. We program for a whole month, so 4 weeks of intentional programming. Repeat that for month 2, and repeat that for month 3. And what we found is that we retain clients very well because they get a variety of training techniques and feel their body exploring new paths of motion and stepping out of old attractor wells and discovering new patterns that make them more successful in their everyday life, in their rec sport, with their kids, whatever the case may be. They come back because there's a variety. It doesn't become boring. Now, boredom is something that it may show up in a training program and may be consistent with doing consistent movement patterns, like always doing overhead presses or always doing curls the same way. And that becomes kind of monotonous. It's the same thing over and over again. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. In fact, it's a great thing because now you get better at ingraining that movement pattern and focusing on the muscle strength in those motions. However, what we're missing out on is incorporating other planes of motion. There's other ways to do an overhead press. Maybe it's an anterior overhead, posterior overhead, lateral overhead. Maybe it's a rotational overhead. The great thing is those are all overhead presses working on triceps, pecs, and deltoids, but we're also exposing our body to different paths to get there. In everyday life, we don't just press things up overhead. You can start getting really great in the gym and lifting it overhead. What is that going to do for the individual that's coming in saying, all right, now what? I've got good overhead presses. Now I'm getting a little tendonitis in my elbow. They're moving through the same patterns that lead to discomfort and essentially pain and overuse injuries because it's a general fitness model. Now, in one-on-ones and some of my private kind of models, that may be better off because now you can progress load, look at rate and duration more specifically. But in terms of group training, we got to have a generalized idea of what people are coming in to experience, and that's to experience better movement. It's to experience health. It's to just feel good in their bodies and to eventually look good naked, right? If we're working out, working the muscles, we're saying this isn't doing anything for me, then what's the point? But if we're doing it for health, we're doing it for longevity, sustainability, looking good naked, and being a part of a community, now we're tapping into the real truth of health, which is the well-being of not just the physical and mental aspects of your being, but the social aspects as well. So we need to provide an environment that focuses on some mental gains, mental well-being, that focuses on physical well-being and gains, but also creates a community and an experience where it's not just transactional, but it's more relational between coach to athlete. And we do that by instilling the variety in our microcycles. What we do at Gymnazo and as MDMC coaches is essentially break that week down now into days. And so these are kind of the micro cycles. It's the daily experience. It's the bread and butter that goes into the macro cycle. These little pieces feed into that overall global holistic experience that by the end of the year, they should feel like whatever gains you were searching for. If it was cardiovascular, if it was more strength, if it was more awareness in movement, whatever it is that you chose for your intention for that year, these daily intentions make all the difference. If you can make every exercise in 1 week different, so no exact same movement, and you do that for 4 weeks, that's a lot of variety and a lot of opportunity to explore movement that now in that month 2, because you've set up that program for month 1, in month 2, it's the same thing repeated. It's now our second exposure to each of those exact exercises. And then going into month 3, it's the third time, and third time's the charm. Your athletes have experienced this. Now they're feeling gains in specific movement patterns and transformational zones versus specific muscle groups. I've been there. I've trained a chest and tri day, back and bi day. I've trained my glutes and my quads and my hammies and all the calves. And I got stronger and I looked good, but I didn't feel great. I was feeling good in the gym. I was really good at my lifts. I could do the machine-based training. It was fantastic. But when it came to everyday experience and picking up a wheelbarrow, and having it full of gravel and then shoveling it out and maybe carrying some wood or carrying some bricks and doing some gardening and chopping some trees and playing catch with my buddies and then going surfing and then hiking, my training was not carrying over into the movement patterns of what I wanted to get better at in life. And so what I started doing was just carrying load when I was hiking. I started to move a little bit different that simulated surfing in my workouts. I started to change my burpees into surfing burpees. So instead of just kicking straight back, popping up and clapping, that was great. But I realized I pop up when I surf. I change it into a rotational burpee and I popped up. And now I do that on both sides and discover some weaknesses in those movement patterns that eventually wound themselves up so much that I could get better in the everyday activity or in that specific activity of daily life. So if you can bring that variety to your training and focus on the intent, think about a forward lunge, right? Let's say you're holding 2 dumbbells and you're going for a forward lunge and you're doing some farmer's carries and you're traveling forward. And then you're out at the house and you're picking up the groceries out of the car and then you bring them to the house and you set them down. You're like, oh my gosh, my back. Well, that was your farmer's carry with the groceries, but you did it in the training program at your gym. And you felt good in the gym doing it really heavy, 50 pounds each hand. But then you lifted 2 10-pound bags and you felt like you threw your back out. What happened? We didn't bring variety into that farmer's carry. We didn't provide an opportunity to say, let's create asymmetrical load in this one, a heavy hand and a light hand, and now go do your walk. Now this requires a little bit more through the core to interact with that lunge and with the load to restabilize yourself. Internally, this feels like an entirely different activity. But it's exactly the same. We just changed the intent. We asymmetrically loaded. What if we held the weight at chest and did our forward lunge? What if instead of just going forward, the next week we went lateral lunges? Now you might look at me and say, oh, that looks pretty dangerous doing a farmer's carry. What if you went a little bit lighter? And it simulated actually carrying something and loading up your adductors and lateral hip so that when you went to go put the groceries on the counter or set them on the table, your hips already experienced this asymmetrical loading, this rotation of the hip, a little lateral loading, and now you're saying, oh my gosh, my training helped me do this better. You didn't even have to worry about throwing out your back because in your training, you were already simulating the forces that you were going to be experiencing in real life, not in gym life, but in real life. So when I say variety, think about tweaking what you're already doing. You don't need to just add more load and go faster and go for longer. You can change the direction of how you're traveling. And a lunge is a lunge, but how you go about that lunge is going to change the internal experience and chain reaction biomechanics through your feet, your ankles, and your hips. And now behaviorally, we go, oh my gosh, I got to pay more attention and be present with my training. And now when I go and lift the groceries and I took that step, oh my gosh, that felt exactly like what I did in the gym. I'm going to now reinforce the healthy habit of going and training in my facility because I know it's not just making me better at the gym, it's making me better in life. So variety is key in your programming when it comes down to the microcycles. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into what those microcycles look like in 1 week. Now at Gymnazo, We do this as a general statement. We think about Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are our strength days, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays are our cardio days. That helps to bring more people in because people recognize what strength and cardio is. You see words like Metcon or HIIT, high intensity interval training. You see plyometrics. That may be great in terms of coaching terminology and verbiage and being able to communicate some specific training methods and styles. But when it comes down to your athletes coming in every day and going, I don't know if to sign up for the Metcon or to sign up for the plyometrics, it's too confusing. It's an easy way out. It's an easy way to not sign up or not to come back because you don't know what you need. But if people see strength or cardio, they go, all right, I'm going to show up for strength day. Now, there might be some cardio aspects of this, some metabolic conditioning aspects to it, some HIIT aspects to it, some plyometrics in it. But we use those as general terms so that we're not confounded by the method or by the specific clock that we're training with, right? We have some versatility in those days where now say we got 4 weeks that we're working out, and there are 3 days each week that we do strength and 3 days each week that we do cardio. That's going to give you now 12 strength workouts and 12 cardio workouts, or 24 completely different workouts that may be focusing on a similar intent. And if you refer to our template, the downloadable template, you're going to see what I mean by those things. It's just kind of a generalized way to say, I've got my system in place. I know my macro cycle, my big goals for the year, and I've only got a few handful of them. And it's more about adaptations specific. We're breaking it down into the mesocycles and saying, okay, what are the skills for those adaptations, or what are the skills with the adaptations we want to create? What is the awareness we want to bring into this training? And then we break that down even further and say, what are the specific movements of those skills? What are the transformational zones of a throw? Where if we're trying to get better at throwing mechanics, we'll take a look at what just happened there. We've got a step that we've got to get better at. We've got a reach that we've got to get better at. We've got a step and reach that we've got to get better at. And then we've got to be able to follow through with this and be able to decelerate that motion. That just maybe giving you 6 to 10 different exercises that now you can tweak to make that step better, that reach better, and that step and throw even better. Consider the tissues and consider the positions of the joint. Consider the actions of our body that are necessary to complete different movement skills. Movement skills are simply just motions chained together. So if you can focus on each little individual segment and then create a one exercise for each of those, well, now let's say today is focusing on gait and throwing. Well, now we can break them down into even more so the exercises themselves, which we do 6 each day. It's a good opportunity to say we got 3 complex movements, we got 3 simple movements. We can throw in the 3 complex one or some of kind of the skills and sequence or chained movements. It's a step and reach maybe, or it's a squat and press or squat and swing, different directions. They were adding a pivot, and then 3 simple ones that are maybe just traditional style lifts. It's just a weighted chest and it's a squat. Maybe it's a simple curl. Maybe it's just a lunge. Maybe it's a prone plank. Again, we can start to simplify and complexify those days based on the clients and athletes that we are serving. So if we look at that microcycle and say, we've got our movement skills, we've got our transformational zones and specific movements and exercises that we've created that are feeding into an entire week of workouts, that are feeding into an entire month of workouts, that then feed into those 3 times of that month into one mesocycle. We can look back at the end of that 3 months and go, did we get the gains we were looking for? Did we get better at movement skills? Did we see members and athletes who came in initially on that week 1 start to thrive through month 2 and then even more so into month 3, where they felt more confident in their bodies? They're looking a little stronger, moving a little bit more confidently. Maybe they're even losing weight and just finding joy in the process. What we're doing is providing an experience that they can look back and say, did I get what I was looking for? And if they felt better, more resilient, and they're not experiencing a ton of pain that then takes them off course and out of the gym, out of training, and just into a sedentary lifestyle, well, now we've got opportunity for mesocycle 2, quarter 2. Is it going to be the same as quarter 1? Hell, it might be. Just depends on what you're trying to do in that macro cycle. Maybe you want to repeat those same workouts every single month, but realize they may become monotonous, and you may lose clients and lose some retention because it's becoming monotonous, becoming just this kind of same experience every single time. We want to provide opportunities for our athletes to explore what their body's capable of and what may be missing. So if they come in from mesocycle 1 or quarter 1 and quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, you can look back at who they were, how they were, and what they did on that first week of quarter 1, and look at them at the end of week 4 of that end of quarter 4 and say, do we need to repeat this? This is great. Should we just keep this cycle going? Or do we need to change some things up? Maybe they need a more restorative focus, and maybe you have a program now that you create for that. That's a week-long, month-long, quarter-long mesocycle for strictly restoration. Maybe you have one strictly for performance and movement skills and complex movement patterns. That's what we call our G3 level, or more complex, versus our G1 level, which is kind of setting the foundation for that G2 that then goes into G3. Or are you focusing purely on fitness? Because now they did that whole year of training, that whole macro cycle with you, and like, that felt damn good. I want to do that again. Look at how much variety you just brought into your entire year of programming, that now they start back at week 1, and it's been so long since they did that exercise, they may recall it, but it's been so long since they did it that they're going to enjoy this full experience again. And it just kind of is this evolution. You're just sort of evolving around this fitness, performance, restoration ecosystem, depending on your program, that helps you retain your clients and build stronger, more mindful bodies. Now, I want to go ahead and break this back down into something that makes sense, that gives you an action item with your clients, that you can create a program that you feel confident delivering and selling, knowing that your athletes, when they sign up and they commit to at least one mesocycle, 1 quarter of training with you, they're going to feel some kind of gain. Now, it starts with you as the coach. And let's not consider in-person or virtual right now. Let's just think about picking one and saying, this is how I'm going to serve my people, and this is my macro cycle. This is what I want my people to experience after 12 months or 4 quarters of training in this system or this program specific. What are those things? You got to ask yourself. Then think about those adaptations. Think about those missions or those goals, those objectives for the year. More broad, more abstract, kind of just like, I don't really know how we're going to get there, but this is what I want my people to experience. And we say, let's break it down now into quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Good rule of thumb, quarter 1 and 3 can be very similar. Quarter 2 and 4 can be very similar. So think about what you want for quarter 1 and 3, or maybe just 1, and different for 2, different for 3, different for 4, your choice. Think about movement skills. Think about your people. What could they get better at that they don't even know they can get better at? Is it doing laundry? Is it throwing a ball with their kids? Is it going for a hike? Is it surfing? Is it gardening? Think about the global things that a majority of the niche that you want to serve will be doing. Then, once you've got those things written down, I would say great ones are throwing mechanics and gait mechanics, because those can be broken down into a lot of things, and everybody likes to throw stuff. Everybody likes to walk, once we're really good at it, especially. So if you're like, that's what I want for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're going to focus on those mechanics, those movement skills. I want you then to break down your quarter into 3 months and program for only 1 month. Do the same thing for month 2 and the same thing for month 3. Copy whatever you do in month 1, those 4 weeks, repeat it again for month 2, and repeat it again for month 3. So you're only programming 1 month at a time. So you got 4 weeks you're working with. Think about in those 3 months, so you got your quarter, that's what you're going to look at, those movement skills specific or mechanic specific. And in week 1, 2, 3, and 4, write down for weeks 1 and 3, similar goals. I want to get them better in a stride stance, on a single leg balance, and be able to get some contralateral motion coordination with opposite hand and foot. And I want to do that through prone, I want to do that through kneeling, and I want to do it through standing in balanced positions. Fantastic. You can make that now, weeks 1 and 3, focusing on specifics, and weeks 2 and 4, focusing on specifics. Let's say weeks 2 and 4, you want to work on more so the power of a lunge position, or the power in stride, and the strength of a single leg in action, and the endurance of a prone position. Again, I'm just throwing these things out there, but just writing them down is going to give you a framework, and you can't go wrong as long as you refer back to your macro cycle and your mesocycle, and now just break it up into smaller pieces. So now you got weeks 1 and 3 and weeks 2 and 4 set with an intention on the skills that you want your people to get better at. Now, go to week 1. Write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for each of those numbers, those are your stations for the day. I want you to write down, I want to do, based off of your week goals, say lower body or upper body. Rule of thumb, do 2 lower body activities, do 2 upper body activities, and then 2 core or 2 full body activities. And you can either combine your lowers so you have a full superset, or you do like a compound set where it's a lower and upper. And then you got a core and upper, and then maybe lower and core. Whatever the case may be, write those down so at least it gives you a framework of what to program for that activity. Now consider in each of those exercises, do that for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. If you're only doing a 3-time-a-week program, only do it for those 3 days. But if you're going for the full week, the full shebang, do Monday, Wednesday, Friday as strength. Do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday as cardio. And now you have intent of what kind of load you're using, what kind of equipment you're using. If you have limited equipment, especially if you're going virtual now, think about what equipment people may have at home or what you're going to require for your program. Whether it's, you got to have at least a dumbbell, maybe an interchangeable dumbbell for different sizes. Maybe you got medicine balls or kettlebells, a mobility stick, whatever it is. If you're going to go virtual, probably keep it simple to 2 pieces of equipment. Forces you to be a little bit more creative in body positions and actions. If you're going in person and you have an abundance of equipment and tools to use, well, now you have a little bit more versatility and freedom on how you want to put the weight, position on a shoulder or back, down at hip, behind you, wherever it is, single arm overhead. Go back through those exercises, those 6, and say, this is the activity I want to put in here for your lower body strength. This is what I want to put in here for your upper body power. This is what I want to put in for your core endurance, and so forth. So now you've got a framework for an entire week that you can then repeat in week 3. So 1 and 3 are the same, and then week 2 and 4 are the same. And either keep the activities very similar or think about the same intent. It's still upper body strength, still lower body power, maybe it's core, but come up with a different activity that targets that same thing. A great place to go, our programming first. We have online programming for different levels, G1, 2, and 3, that are essentially building in complexity. That I'll have a link in here for you to click and purchase. It's all done for you, and they're programs that work and people find gains. It's all about your coaching that makes the difference. But it's a good idea just to open your box of exercises. Don't just use the same ones. If it's a push-up, how else can you do a push-up? I'll give you a hint. Change your hand position. Change your foot position. Change the height of your hands. Put them on a box. Change the foot position. Maybe you're on your knees. Maybe you're holding. Again, lots of variety, lots of options. It's all a push-up. You just change the intent and the area of the upper body that they're working. If you download or if you purchase our program, you're going to have also a virtual option or body weight program. That's great to do with your clients if they don't have any equipment at the house, or you don't have any equipment, but you still want to coach people through movement. Purchase our body weight program. It's an entire quarter of workouts. So 1 month, so 4 weeks of all different stuff that you repeat for 2 months, and you could keep doing that same program. It's going to get you full body strong and very mentally and physically aware how you're moving through space. So check that out. Otherwise, just get creative. Go check out YouTube. Look up movements. Look up push-up, a variety of push-ups. Look up ladder drills. That's where I started, and then started to bring more intention to my practice, and then put that into our programming into something that's more of a systematic view of 3D functional, authentic human movement. So either purchase ours, go create some stuff yourself. Just do something with that program. Don't just let it sit. Sell it. Maybe just film yourself doing those motions and put it on your social media. Put it up on YouTube. Use this as a foundation framework for your program, for your own system. Whatever you're certified in, TRX, MACE, kettlebell, whatever the case is, use your techniques, use those skills that you've learned in those courses and in those certifications. Now build your own program. That's the beauty of being a coach, and a multidimensional movement coach. If you go through our program, is going to help set you up for kind of unpacking and unraveling all those other techniques and dogmas out there that say this is the right way to do things. Now you can look at it from an objective view and say, what is it that they're actually doing? What's the experience that they're creating, and what did I experience going through it? Now go create something new. Stand on the shoulders of giants. Everybody who's created a method, even us who've created the MDMC, use what we've taught you and go create something beautiful. If you've got bigger questions about in-person group training, virtual group training, and you're just kind of lost in the muck, highly suggest checking out Gymnazo.edu. We go into the cobwebs, those dark corners, and say, here's a way out. Here's the light. Here's how to program. Here's how to look at your clientele, ask the right questions. Here's what to do if somebody's in pain and they don't want to work out anymore. Here's how to modify, tweak. We call that tweakology. And then here's how to just see movement from a very truth, principle, objective perspective, so that you know that you're not pushing your beliefs too much on your clients, but you're helping them discover their own joy through movement. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was helpful. Please feel free to leave comments, share this. It'll be super helpful, not just for you, but for other coaches who are looking to expand their box of programming and get out of that writer's block of going, man, I'm doing the same shit over and over and over again. I'm bored with it. My clients are bored with it. How do I bring more of this beauty of human movement and flow and freedom into my practice? Well, you got this right here. You got the framework. You got the foundation. Now it's just about getting the pen to the paper and taking action. Enjoy. Catch you guys next time.